Bananas! The world's most consumed fruit. We're going to take 20 kilos of reject bananas today and turn it into brandy. This brandy, to be precise, banana brandy. Cheers, guys. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse and this is Still It. And it is always a little bit of a mystery exactly what flavors are going to carry over from a recipe through distillation. That is not the case with this banana brandy. I got to tell you guys, this is pretty special. In case you'd like to follow along at home, let me give you a quick idea of everything you're going to need right at the beginning. Bananas, a buttload of them. Yeast nutrient, sugar, more water, citric acid, and of course a still. I'm going to be using the T500 from Still Spirits with the Alembic Dome. Over the last few years, I have distilled with a whole lot of different ingredients, but never with bananas. So because of that, I decided to bring someone in to give a few pointers for this video. You'll be seeing a Beaver DIY popping up from time to time to give us those extra little handy pointers. But honestly, as far as distilled spirits go, this recipe is really pretty simple. So let's get stuck in, shall we? We're going to need some bananas. So this recipe is going to require 10 kilos of bananas, 22 pounds. It's going to make a 20-litre wash, that much in freedom units, and it is going to result in about 2 to 3 litres of banana brandy, depending on your cuts and depending on exactly how far you proof it down. I'm actually going to be making a double batch, so that'll be 20 kilos of bananas or 44 pounds of bananas, but I'll be giving you volumes for each along the way so you can follow along. Now, this next part, some of you might laugh at this and think I'm a little bit crazy, but that's because you can get cheap bananas year round. That's lovely for you. But here's the thing, guys. People buy fruit with their eyes. It's got to look good. So if you go to pretty much any shop that sells bananas and ask them nicely, chances are they're going to have rejects or seconds or cosmetic seconds, whatever they call them specifically where you are, sitting out the back for a fraction of the price. So for me, at the local vegetable shop, buying 20 kilos of reject bananas with the help of my wonderful assistant cost me $15 as opposed to something more like $70. Well worth it, guys. You're buying this many bananas, they're unlikely to all be at the ideal level of ripeness at the same time. But we have a strategy to deal with this. First of all, let's deal with the bananas that are already overripe. And this, honestly, guys, is really pretty simple. Just peel them, cut off any bits that are just way too far gone or just completely mush. Whack all of the good stuff into a Ziploc bag and pop it into the freezer. Next up, the bananas that are too green, the ones that aren't ripe enough yet and likely won't be ripe enough by the time you're ready to brew. Easy, just do the exact opposite. Gather them all together, get them nice and close, and then wrap them in something like a plastic sheet. If you're doing this on a giant scale, like a tarpaulin will work. So, I must admit that when I first thought about making something from bananas, I'd assumed that I'd be using enzymes in some capacity to convert some starch in the bananas into sugar. Turns out that's not really the case. Here's Beaver DIY to give you a little bit more information.
So if you look at an unripe banana, that's a lot of starches in there. But once a banana is ripe, you're looking at about 1% starch. If you go completely black, then you get 23% sugar out of the banana.
But just because we're not doing anything crazy on the enzyme side doesn't mean that we can't do a few things to sort of boost the flavor profile a little bit. Here's Beaver DIY with another one of his ideas.
What I do with a banana brandy is half of the bananas I go just to ripe, yellow, and then I leave the other half and I put them in the oven. Nice and hot so they go nice and black and the sugar's inside caramelized.
So pick out 5 kilos of the ripest bananas you have, or 10 kilos if you're doing a double batch like me. Pop those aside. We're going to use those later on. We're not cooking them at all. We use them as they are. The next 4 kilos, or 8 kilos if you're doing a double like me, we're going to line up on baking trays and pop them into a 160°C oven. That's this in Fahrenheit, and leave them in there for 15 to 25-ish minutes. What you're looking for is all of the skins to go black and a couple of the bananas to start splitting. Some of the more attentive amongst you may have realized that we've got a kilo left over if you're doing a single batch, or 2 kilos doing a double batch like me, of bananas that we haven't used yet. That is because we're turning those into specialty bananas. I think really dialing up the caramelized cooked banana effect in this is well worth it. So here's what we're going to do, guys. Take a large frying pan and get it over medium heat. Drop in a small knob of butter until it starts foaming, or at least melts, and pop your bananas in on top of it. Cook them for a little while, turning them every now and again until they start to gain some color and they're semi-cooked through, at which point you're going to sprinkle 2 tablespoons of brown sugar all over the top. Keep cooking and keep turning the bananas until they're completely cooked through and they've developed a really nice brown color on the outside. And now you're ready to add your raw, ripe bananas, your oven-cooked bananas, and your pan-cooked bananas all into a large pot, vessel, fermenter, whatever you've got to work with. If you're doing a single batch, you're going to want to get something that's at least about 30 litres in volume. If you're doing a double batch, you're going to want something that is at least 50 litres in volume. Now, like Beaver said earlier on, we're only getting about 18 to 23% sugar from these bananas, and in our wash, that's going to shake out to about 4.5 to 6%, depending on exactly how things work. Not quite high enough for me, so I'm going to be using sugar to bump up the ABV, and lately I've been using a lot of inverted sugar for this kind of thing. So if you're doing a single batch, take 2 kilos of sugar, add it into 3 kilos of hot water and dissolve it. Once it's dissolved, you can start it simmering and add 2 teaspoons of citric acid and let it simmer away for 20 minutes. Obviously I'm doing a double batch, I'm going to double all of those volumes. Once it's simmered for 20 minutes, we can add it into the pot with our bananas. Just keep in mind, guys, that this sugar water is really, really freaking hot. So be careful, but also don't let it sit with the bananas for any length of time because it will cook the raw bananas through and we don't want that. Add cold water in straight away and we're aiming for a total volume of 20 litres for a single batch or 40 litres for a double. All you need to do now is give the whole thing a really good blitz with an electric drill and a paint mixer, and we're wanting to break the banana up to basically a puree and just get everything really well mixed. This is the point where I'm going to split my batch into 2 different fermenters because I want to experiment with something. If you want to do that, then go right ahead, but you don't need to. What you do need to do, however, is make sure that you leave some decent headroom in the top of your fermenter. Beaver has something to say about this as well.
Tons of headroom. That thing makes a fruit cap like no one's business. I've painted ceilings, painted walls.
So I'm pushing things a little bit. I've got 2 35-litre fermenters and I've got 20 litres of wash in each of them. I've just realised I've got double merch on. I try to never do that. But anyway, if you want to look like a Muppet like me as well, there's links in the description below. Now it's time to talk about yeast, and this is the reason I decided to do a double batch and split it. I wanted to try 2 different yeasts, see if it made a difference between the 2 batches, and then give you guys a recommendation on what I prefer, or let you choose what makes sense for you. It's also a great time to let you guys know that the sponsor of this video is Still Spirits. Thanks a bunch, guys. As well as sponsoring the video, they also sent along some of their Distillers series rum yeast, which is the first yeast we're going to be using. The reason I wanted to use a rum yeast is that, in my mind, rum and molasses have a lot of very similar flavors to banana. So it just kind of made sense to see if the yeast would play well with banana as well as molasses. Still Spirits rum yeast comes in a 20-gram packet, and I think that's about a perfect pitching rate for this size wash. We'll also be using some Still Spirits Distiller's Dark Nutrient and following the instructions on the back for a fruit wash. Obviously, if you have a different brand of nutrient, that's totally fine. If you're using DAP, totally fine. I think with just straight bananas, it's probably smart to put some sort of nutrient in there though. Anyway, the other yeast that I want to use is Lalvin EC1118. At the end of the day, this is a fruit wine that we're making before we distill it. So it made sense to give a wine yeast a go, basically. Yes, this actually is 1118. It's just been repackaged and it comes in a 10-gram bag. We'll be using 2 of those and the same amount of nutrients to make things all even Stevens with the rum yeast. To follow up on what Beaver was saying earlier about this stuff getting a little feisty during fermentation, I'd suggest using a loosely fitting lid rather than airlocking this, just in case it does get a little bit crazy. And if you have the ability, temperature controlling it to around about 25 degrees isn't a bad idea either. It is going to form a pretty serious fruit cap, so knocking that down daily, at least until fermentation really starts to slow out, once again is a pretty good idea. Fermentation is going to take somewhere between a week and 2.5 weeks most likely, and you'll be able to tell that it's done when the fruit cap sort of starts to sink right down to the bottom. Anyway, with fermentation out of the way, it's time to talk about distilling, and a 20-litre wash is kind of an awkward volume for me. It is borderline too small to run it on my 50-litre still as a one and done with bubble plates, but it's not big enough to do multiple stripping runs with the T500 and build up low wines. So what we're going to do today is kind of a version of what we call a 1.5 run. But first we need to strain the chunky stuff out of the wash. And like I said, now that that fruit cap is sitting down near the bottom, it's going to make things a whole lot easier. So luckily I have this pretty awesome piece of kit that is going to act like a giant sieve and strain a lot quicker than other ways of doing it. And all I'm going to do is tip the top 3/4 of the wash in that's still relatively clear and get that strained out first. But if you don't have something like this to use at home, Beaver's got a really good tip for you on this one as well.
You're going to filter it. So I take it the day beforehand, throw it through a normal mud cloth or a cheesecloth, leave it overnight. The sediment does settle out, but if you're going to draw off the top, you're going to have a ton of wastage. I take mine, tip it over the bucket, and then just leave it to drain overnight.
To get started, I'm going to add 15 litres of wash into the T500. If you didn't follow Beaver's instructions and strain overnight, get the rest of the chunky stuff out of the fermenter into whatever straining method you're using. We'll let that strain out for a couple of hours while the still is running. This first distillation we're going to run just like any old normal stripping run. So we're going to run as fast as the still will allow us to run, and we're going to collect without making cuts all the way down. I urge you, please go down at least to 15% coming off the still. Personally, for this one, I went all the way down to 5% for two reasons. One, I didn't want to lose product, and I also wanted volume to put back into the still, which is what we're trying to kind of combat with this whole 1.5 run thing. Once we're finished with the first stripping run, empty the still out and discard that, and then it's time to add back in the low wines that we collected from the first stripping run and the rest of our wash. And now we're ready for our spirit run. We're going to run this very, very differently to the stripping run. We're going to run it low and slow. For those of you that don't know, you can't adjust the power on a T500, but it's a completely analog system, so it's really easy to just plug it into some sort of power regulator. I ended up running it around about half power for this run. So I took 50 mils of foreshots, 700 mils of heads before moving into the hearts and collecting basically until the desirable flavors started to fade away. And for me, that was cutting off right around the 50% mark coming off the still. I repeated the entire distillation process as closely as I could with the second batch. Both banana brandies were then proofed down to 45% ABV, ready for tasting. And once again, like I've been doing recently, we're going to bring my wife Erin in to taste with me because she can be a little bit more objective. She doesn't really care about the geeky stuff, she just likes drinking tasty things. I'll edit it right down to a short little snippet for you guys, but the Patreons, I'll put the full version up over on Patreon for you guys to watch that. All right, guys, it is tasting time with Wifey, and it's kind of official because check it out. You've got your own mic now.
I got mic'd.
She got mic.
I didn't like it either.
Tried to put my hand down her top to...
I did not like it.
I got rejected. Very sad. Anyway, this is the rum yeast version, and that is the EC1118 yeast. Do you care?
I don't even know what that means.
Didn't think so. There you go. So we're keeping some semblance of objectivity here.
Wow.
I cannot believe how banana-y this is.
So banana-y.
All right. Do you want to...
Banana-y.
Banana-y.
It's so oven banana dessert, like
yes,
barbecue
yes,
banana.
Yes, I completely agree.
They are both really good.
They are both really good. I'm impressed with this.
I like this one better.
I would agree.
This one tastes a little cheap.
For new viewers to the channel, we've arrived at the point in the video where Erin calls something cheap with no other descriptive force along with it.
This one's like the full Monty, whatever the word is. This is like the full thing. The taste and the aftertaste, it's all really nice. This one cheaps out with the aftertaste. Oh, I actually just got it in my eye.
Did you just throw Banana Brandy in your eye? The interesting thing to me is that this to me has more fresh banana flavor. Like you peeled a banana and smelt it or tasted it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and then it kind of disappears like
And
a more fresh, green banana.
And you're right, it does finish on that almost metallic
Yeah.
taste you get from banana sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like a really green banana. This is why I bring her, guys. I'm telling you, I would never have got that. This one just tastes like pan-fried or grilled banana with sugar.
Yeah.
Like brown sugar, caramelized. That's the main flavor in this one, right?
Yeah, definitely.
With a little bit of that kind of banana cake banana as well.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. They both are really good. They're really different though. Like I think I could tell them apart.
Should we play?
Oh no! Okay, can I try the other one? Yeah, I'm sure this is the green banana one.
Yeah.
And that other one's
Yeah, you're right.
really
So
good.
if all I served you was this one, would you be impressed?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's just
really good.
something about this one that...
Yeah, that one's like special. It's got the full, you're like, ooh, it's tastes expensive. Tastes a little cheap. It's true.
Erin's taken the drink that I preferred inside and left me with this one. But before I say anything else, I just want to say, and I want to like officially put this on record, that there's a lot of different things that could have changed in the method. It's not necessarily just the yeast that is the deciding or the different factor here. It could easily have been a difference in distillation that got us half of this way. I would have to run this test multiple times to even begin to say that that's really what the difference is. But in some ways it makes sense, right? The flavors that are being pulled out in the version that was made with the Distiller series rum yeast are flavors that are more similar to rum. It is caramelized sugar. It is a thick, full-bodied, sort of grungy sugar flavor that's lingering at the end that makes it full and desserty on the palate, on the finish. Whereas this one has more of the straight fruit flavor, the straight, like, fresh banana flavor, and this is the fruit yeast. So, I don't know, guys. If anyone else here is willing to do the same test again, please come back, put your comment in the comment section down below. Let us know what your findings were. I'm sure anyone that watches this video in the future will be very, very appreciative. Anyway, I need to say a huge, huge thank you to the Patreons. These are the people that let me do this on a weekly basis, so thank you so much. I have heard reports from a few of you saying that your names haven't shown up, some of the newer Patreons. I hope I've got that sorted this week. Let me know if you're still missing, and I'll do what I can for the next video. Anyway, guys, I 100% meant what I said near the beginning of this video, where I said that this is totally something that you should try. The amount of flavor that's come through on both of these is ridiculous. This is my least favorite of the two spirits that I made, the one with the EC 1118, and if this was all I had, I would be very happy. So I can't recommend this enough. Thank you also to Beaver DIY for helping me out on this. Thanks, dude. I don't know if I would have jumped into this so eagerly without your help, so I really do appreciate it. For those of you that haven't seen his channel, check him out. He's making some cool stuff. Definitely an up-and-coming distilling channel. There's a link in the description down below to go and check him out. If you like this video, please, guys, give it a thumbs up. That really does help me out, and it costs you nothing, so get on that like button for me. Drop a comment in the comment section down below if you have something to say, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Keep on chasing the craft. See ya.